A viral story is spreading right now with a new nickname for Dallas, and it is making a lot of immigrant families nervous. A U.S. lawmaker has claimed there is a massive influx of Muslims in Dallas and suggested parts of Texas are undergoing Islamization. If you are an immigrant, a student, a worker, a visitor, or you have a USCIS case pending, the big question is simple. Does a viral political claim change your immigration reality this week, at the airport, at your interview, or on your petition? By the end of this video, you will have 3 clear takeaways. First, what was actually said and what is verified fact versus commentary. Second, who could be practically affected if rhetoric turns into policy, and who is not affected right now. And third, a calm checklist to protect your travel and your case without overreacting. Here is the part most people miss. Viral headlines can create real-life consequences even when no law has changed, because they can change behavior at airports, in workplaces, and in online misinformation circles. So we are going to separate noise from signals. Let us start with what we know and what we do not know. The claim making the rounds is that Dallas is seeing a massive influx of Muslims and that this is destroying the U.S. That is a political statement. It is not, by itself, a USCIS policy update, a CBP directive, or a State Department rule. And unless there is a documented government action attached to it, like a proposed regulation, a signed executive order, a DHS memo, a court filing, or a published agency announcement, it does not automatically change immigration eligibility or travel rules. That is the first grounding point. Now, can rhetoric matter? Yes. It can influence proposed legislation, oversight hearings, agency priorities, and public attention. But those steps take time, and they leave a paper trail you can track. So when you see a clip, a quote, or a headline, your first question should be, what did the government actually do? Not what did someone say on TV or online. This is where people get tripped up. In U.S. immigration, there are 3 different worlds that get mixed together: political speech, agency policy, and your individual case. Political speech can be loud and emotional. Agency policy is slower and more technical, and your case is decided on evidence, eligibility rules, and officer discretion within the law. If you remember that triangle, you will be much harder to mislead. Now let us talk plainly about a fear I am seeing in comments. Can the U.S. restrict immigration based on religion? In general terms, U.S. law includes constitutional protections and anti-discrimination principles, and the government typically cannot create a simple rule that says one religion is banned from benefits. At the same time, immigration is an area where the government has broad authority over entry and security screening, and historically, we have seen intense scrutiny applied to certain regions and certain types of cases during different periods. The key distinction is this. Scrutiny is usually justified publicly under security, fraud prevention, or foreign policy grounds, not explicitly as a religious test. That does not mean bias cannot exist in the real world, but it does mean a viral claim about a religion does not automatically translate into a lawful USCIS rule that denies people because of faith. Here is a quick myth versus reality moment. Myth: USCIS can deny your green card because you are Muslim. Reality: USCIS decisions are supposed to be based on eligibility requirements and evidence for the specific benefit you filed, not your religion. If there is a denial, it will be framed in legal terms, like eligibility, inadmissibility grounds, missing evidence, or credibility, not a statement about a religion. Another myth versus reality. Myth: if you live in Dallas, you are now on a list. Reality: there is no general Dallas-based immigration list that exists just because a viral nickname exists. What does exist are normal systems, visa records, entry records, background checks, and case files that are tied to your identity and your application, not your neighborhood rumor. Now, who is actually affected by this kind of viral moment, and who is not? I want to put you into clear buckets so you can stop guessing. Bucket 1. Travelers and people who expect to travel soon, especially international travel. If you are a non-citizen, your most sensitive moment is often the port of entry, when CBP checks your documents and decides whether to admit you. Viral narratives can increase the chances of extra questions if an officer is on heightened alert for certain issues. But it still comes down to your documents, your admissibility, and the purpose of your trip. Bucket 2. People with pending USCIS cases such as family petitions, adjustment of status, naturalization, or humanitarian applications. The practical risk is not that a quote changes the law overnight, but that you might see more misinformation that pushes you into mistakes, like skipping an interview, traveling at the wrong time, or paying a scammer who promises protection. Bucket 3. Employers and workers. Rhetoric can affect workplace tension and can trigger more talk about compliance. If you are on a work visa or employment authorization, your day-to-day risk is mostly about maintaining status and keeping your paperwork accurate. Bucket 4. Students. Students often travel, often have changing addresses, and often face confusion about what is safe. The biggest danger is small mistakes, not carrying the right documents, not understanding the difference between a visa and status, or letting fear push you into unnecessary decisions. Now, who is not affected right now? U.S. citizens are not subject to immigration admissions decisions, though they can be affected socially. Lawful permanent residents generally have strong rights to return, but they can face questions at re-entry if they have long trips abroad or other issues. Still, the standard rules apply, not a viral nickname. And most importantly, the vast majority of people already in the U.S. are not suddenly required to register, reapply, or report something just because a politician said something. If a new requirement were to exist, it would be public, it would be official, and it would be widely covered by reliable sources with specific instructions. Here is the part most people miss. The fastest harm from viral immigration stories is not policy, it is panic. Panic leads to bad choices. So let us talk about why these moments happen now, and why they feel so intense. Immigration is one of the most emotionally charged policy areas in the U.S. It intersects with security, jobs, identity, and demographics. When there is an aggressive enforcement environment, or even just an environment where people expect changes, politicians and media outlets amplify claims that fit a larger narrative. That can happen even when the measurable data is more complicated. Another driver is backlogs and processing delays. When people are waiting months or years, they are more sensitive to any headline that suggests the rules changed. And that makes misinformation spread faster. Add social media clips that cut out context, and suddenly a claim becomes a supposed policy. Now, let us get practical. What real-world consequences could show up even if nothing official changes tomorrow? First, at airports and land borders, you may see more questions about the purpose of travel, where you live, where you will stay, and ties to home, especially for visitors and students. That is not new, but it can feel different when you are already anxious. Second, you can see more scams. Scammers love fear cycles. They will claim they can put your name on a safe list, speed up your case, or prevent deportation based on a rumor. Third, families can self-censor travel. People cancel trips, miss weddings, or avoid needed travel because they think a ban is coming. Sometimes that is unnecessary, and sometimes delaying travel can be smart depending on your status and documents. The point is you should make decisions based on verifiable information, not a clip. Fourth, workplace discrimination can spike when a narrative goes viral. That is a social and employment issue more than an immigration rule change, but it impacts your life. If you are affected, document what happens and seek appropriate help through proper channels. Now, another myth versus reality, because this one spreads every time. Myth: if the government is cracking down, your USCIS case will automatically be denied. Reality: many enforcement trends focus on specific priorities. USCIS adjudications still follow eligibility frameworks. What can increase is the level of scrutiny, like more requests for evidence, more detailed interviews, or more emphasis on fraud indicators. That means your best response is preparation and accuracy, not panic. So what should you do now? I am going to give you a simple do this and avoid this checklist. This is general information, not legal advice, and you should adjust it to your situation. Do this. Keep your documents organized and current. That means a folder, digital and physical, with your passport bio page, current visa if you have one, I-94 record if you are a non-immigrant, your approval notices, your employment authorization or green card, and copies of anything you filed with USCIS. Do this. Monitor official sources on a schedule instead of doom scrolling. For most people, once a week is enough unless you have an urgent travel date. The sources to watch are USCIS for benefits, CBP for border procedures, DHS for broader policy statements, and the State Department for visa processing abroad, and the Visa Bulletin if you are in that world. Do this. If you have travel coming up, do a pre-travel check. Confirm your documents are valid for re-entry, confirm your status rules, and confirm you have what you need for the specific category you are in. Do this. If you get an RFE or interview notice, respond on time and do not guess. If you are confused, get reliable help. Avoid this. Do not pay anyone who claims they have an inside connection at USCIS, CBP, or a consulate. Avoid this. Do not sign forms you did not read and do not understand. Avoid this. Do not travel internationally if your case type or status makes travel risky for you without understanding the rules that apply to you. For example, if you have a pending process that requires permission to travel, you need to understand that before leaving. If you do not know, pause and verify. Avoid this. Do not rely on viral lists, screenshots, or anonymous posts claiming new bans are starting tomorrow unless you can match them to an official announcement. Now let me give you 2 example scenarios, because stories make this real. Example Scenario 1. A student in Dallas on an F1 status sees the viral clip and thinks CBP will deny them on re-entry just because they live in Texas. They are planning a quick trip abroad. The smart move is not panic canceling instantly. The smart move is to check their passport validity, their visa stamp if needed for return, their school travel signature timing, and their enrollment status. Then they watch official updates and talk to the designated school official if anything changes. The risk is usually paperwork and timing, not the city you live in. Example Scenario 2. A spouse of a U.S. citizen in Dallas has a pending adjustment of status and an upcoming interview. They see people online saying Muslims will be denied. That pushes them toward a scammer offering a paid letter of protection. The better move is to prepare the normal evidence for the interview, keep copies of filings, and if they have concerns about bias or complicated issues, consult a qualified attorney for strategy. In most cases, the interview is still about the marriage evidence, identity, and eligibility, not viral politics. Here is another microhook. 2 groups should pay extra attention right now, and it has nothing to do with religion. Group 1 is anyone with upcoming international travel within the next 30 to 60 days. Group 2 is anyone with a deadline from USCIS, like an RFE response window or an interview date. Those are the moments where misinformation can cause irreversible mistakes. Now, what could happen next? We need to be honest. Sometimes rhetoric does turn into proposals. Watch for a few specific signals. Signal 1. Actual proposed bills, hearings, or public letters that request agency action. A letter is not a law, but it can show intent. Signal 2. DHS or USCIS guidance updates, like changes in forms, instructions, policy manual updates, or public alerts. Signal 3. State Department cables or public notices that affect visa processing abroad. Signal 4. Litigation. If a policy is challenged in court, you will see filings, temporary restraining orders, injunctions, and appeals. That is where the real timeline shows up. Signal 5. Data-based moves such as targeted fraud initiatives or security vetting changes that apply to certain case types. If something like that happens, it is usually described in bureaucratic language, not in viral nicknames. Here is the key. If you cannot point to an official document or an official web page, treat the claim as unverified and do not make a life-changing decision based on it. Also, do not let anyone use your fear to divide you from your neighbors. Immigration rules are complicated enough without adding social panic. Let us do one more myth versus reality, because this question comes up every single time. Myth: there is a new travel ban starting because someone said Islamization. Reality: a travel ban is a specific government action. If one were being created, there would be official announcements, legal text, and immediate widespread coverage by major outlets with details on who is covered and when it begins. Until you see that, do not assume it exists. Now, if you are worried about discrimination at the airport, here are calm steps you can take that are generally safe. Keep your answers consistent and simple. Carry key documents. Do not carry materials that create confusion about your purpose of travel. Give yourself extra time. And if you are selected for secondary inspection, stay calm, ask questions politely, and do not guess. If you do not know an answer, say you do not know. Again, not legal advice, just practical behavior advice to reduce stress and confusion. Before we wrap, let us zoom out. The headline here is not that immigration law changed overnight in Dallas. The headline is that a political claim about Muslims in Dallas is circulating, and it is creating anxiety and misinformation risk. Your power move is to stay grounded, protect your paperwork, and watch the real signals. Here is your final recap in 5 quick points. 1. A viral claim or quote is not the same as an official USCIS, CBP, DHS, or State Department policy change. 2. Your case is decided based on eligibility and evidence, not social media narratives. 3. The groups with the highest short-term risk are travelers and people facing USCIS deadlines because mistakes are costly. 4. Your best defense is a simple routine. Organize documents, verify from official sources weekly, and avoid scams. 5. If policy really changes, you will be able to verify it through official announcements and credible reporting, and we will then be able to talk about the details calmly and specifically. Do not panic, get informed. If you want, comment your situation in general terms, like student travel, green card interview, or visitor visa questions, and I will tell you what official sources to check and what common pitfalls to avoid. And if you want ongoing updates explained in plain English, subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next verified change.